It seems like West Asia is the place to be. Last week, US President Joe Biden dropped in. This week, it's the Russian President. Vladimir Putin is visiting Iran. He landed in the Iranian capital earlier today. Over the next few hours, he has 4 important engagements. First, a meeting with Iran's President, Ibrahim Raisi. Second, a conversation with the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Third, a bilateral with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and finally a tripartite summit, Erdogan, Raisi and Putin. They will hold 3-way talks. It is called the Astana Dialogue. It focuses mainly on the Syrian war, but this time they'll have one more war to discuss. Now, why is this trip important? For starters, Putin is a wartime leader. This is his second foreign visit since the war began. His first was to Turkmenistan last month. And what does that tell you? Putin is betting on the partnership with Iran. He wants to forge a broad anti-West coalition, which brings us to the second reason. Russia and Iran have had a complicated relationship. During World War II, Iran was a neutral country. They did not support the Allies or the Axis powers. But they had something that both sides wanted, and that was oil. So in 1941, the Allies invaded Iran. Britain and the Soviet Union led that campaign. Cut to 2022, both countries have changed dramatically. Iran is now an Islamic republic and the Soviet Union does not even exist. So relations are improving slowly but steadily. You could say Russia and Iran are partners but not allies. Their relationship is based on convenience, like their shared hatred of the West, or their role in the Syrian war. There is very little ideological congruence. Putin's objective is to change that, to upgrade Iran from a partner to an ally. The question is, what's in it for them, for Iran? What does Iran get in return? 2 things. Number 1, a bulwark against the expanding Arab-Israeli bloc. Saudi Arabia may not recognize Israel today or tomorrow, but they will eventually. And where would that leave Iran? Alone and vulnerable in the region. So this alliance with Russia is important to push back against the emerging West Asian order. Number 2, a fellow anti-Western crusader. Both Russia and Iran are heavily sanctioned by the West. Their economies need some sort of lifeline. So why not each other? Russia-Iran trade was up 81% last year. A lot of this trade is done in local currency. Russia buys in rubles, Iran buys in rial. They have successfully de-dollarized bilateral trade. Now, Putin may dominate the headlines today, but he's not the only world leader who's present in Tehran. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is also in town. He met with President Raisi and Ayatollah Khamenei. Both talks focused on Syria. Erdogan is planning a military operation in northern Syria. His plan is twofold. First, drive the Kurdish fighters away from the border, and second, resettle Syrian refugees in the region. Russia and Iran are trying to stop this. Both countries support Bashar al-Assad's regime in Damascus. They cannot stand by if Turkey attacks him. So Iran's supreme leader asked Erdogan to reconsider his decision. He said a Turkish attack would be detrimental to security. And chances are Putin will say more of the same. But will Erdogan be convinced? His reaction in Tehran suggests he won't.
The PJAK, PKK, PYD, YPG, FETO terrorist organizations are a serious nuisance to both countries. They are nuisances that disrupt the calm of the countries where they are present. Therefore, we need to continue to lead a struggle against them in solidarity.
He's playing a game of brinkmanship on both sides. Remember NATO's Nordic expansion plan? Erdogan had agreed to it. He agreed to support Sweden and Finland's membership to the NATO, but now he's threatening to freeze the entire thing. Same with Syria. Russia and Iran had changed the tide of the war, but now Erdogan is threatening a new offensive. It sounds like crude diplomacy. Well, that's the thing about brinkmanship. If you pull it off, you're a hero. If you don't, you end up looking rash and foolish. The jury is still out on Erdogan. But coming back to Iran, can Putin's visit truly open a new chapter? The political will is certainly there. Iran's right-wing radicals have always advocated closer ties with Russia. Today, they're in power, so both Putin and Raisi will be keen to expand relations. Having said that, 2 challenges still remain: economy and history. Russia and Iran are competitors in the global market because they both sell the same things: steel and oil. And right now, Russia is eating into Iran's market share. I'll tell you why. Russia is offering steep discounts for everything they sell. But Iran cannot match that. So most consumers are shifting from Iran to Russia. Take the example of China. Their crude imports from Russia are up 25%. But those from Iran are down 50%. Do you see the problem here? Political alignment is difficult if you're economic rivals, if you're competing for the same market. The second challenge is history. Iran and Russia have fought 5 wars. Russia consistently meddled in Iranian domestic affairs during the last century. You could say that's in the past, but there's a deep mistrust of Russia among the Iranian public.